State for the win. They hand it off to Johnson. Boise State has won the top.
They take a downfield shot. And the catch is made. It's Ryan Williams. Still spinning free. Touchdown! The touchdown in the first possession. Back in the game. And he's loose again. Edwards off and running. Welcome back, Donovan Edwards.
He's going to the corner. He's got it.
This is the Gridiron Uncensored.
Welcome back, everybody. It is the Gridiron Uncensored podcast. Got a special edition because we got a special guest tonight. Friend Alex coming over from the Mac Sports Connection. Because we're rolling out with these group of 5 season previews and contenders for one, their conferences, but 2, maybe the playoffs. So we're going to lean in on with that and get some action going. We've got Ohio first. You can see by that lovely graphic that Trevor's making, and then also the gear that Alex is repping. So we love to see it. Everybody, welcome Alex. If you want, please, introduce yourself and your podcast. And you guys are a big voice in the Mac community.
Yeah, first off, thank you guys so much for having us here to kind of represent the Mid-American Conference. I like to tell people that I pretend better than everybody else that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to the MAC, when in all actuality, the MAC is so hard to predict on anything. It's pretty chaotic. And but no, thank you guys for having me on, the opportunity to talk about this conference that is very near and dear to my heart, soon to be 2 degrees from, funny enough, one of the schools we'll be talking about tonight. So Alex, as you guys said, Mac Sports Connection, all Maction all the time. My co-host Graham and I are both Toledo undergrads, and then I'm actually working on my master's at Ohio in sports administration. So awesome. It's it's a bunch of great stuff. I'm very blessed to have the relationship we have with the league. A lot of great opportunities have been presented to us by the league. And we don't just talk football. Football is obviously kind of the big bread and butter of what we do, but we talk all the way down to field hockey. We just broke down the softball tournament this last week's episode. So it would have been this Wednesday that we just did that. And then we talk about other things, coaching changes with football, with softball. The big storyline out of the MAC for the softball NCAA tournament is the former coach for Miami, now coaching at Ohio State. They're in the same regional for the first round of the NCAA tournament. So a little bit of a fun storyline. So,
hey man, I love it. And we really appreciate you coming on. It means a lot to us, of course. And like I said, we're going through all the previews. This is the time of year where we try to cover, all the Power 4, the group of 5, we try to, reach around and, hit as many, as we can. And, you got to talk about the MAC when it comes to, college. You can't not talk about the MAC and Maction in Ohio, Toledo, and a couple of these other guys. We're looking at, of course, Miami, Ohio is one, Buffalo maybe. Somebody that needs to be keeping an eye out on. So tonight, obviously, we're talking Ohio, and I like to start these looking back a little bit, looking at 2024, and looking at their schedule. It's a great season. I mean, 11-3. It started off, yes, you had the loss to Syracuse, but it was pretty close, to be honest. The score, people might see that. Oh, no, it wasn't. I thought it was a pretty close game watching it. And then you go on, you got Kentucky loss. But then, you had the loss to Miami, but you get back at them in the conference championship game, and you get a big win there. And I feel like so much of that was just the team meshing and coming together. And then you go on and you beat Jacksonville State, which is always a solid squad. Mm-hmm. So 2024, what do you think of that? And, can they continue that progress, from 24 to 25?
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, a 56-year championship drought was snapped. The now former longest Mid-American Conference title drought snapped by this great Ohio Bobcats team. And, we obviously saw Tim Albin pretty much as the team was leaving Detroit, we all get notified Tim Albin is taking the job at Charlotte. So a huge blow and a huge damper to that celebration, especially for Bobcat faithful. I still think you need to build that man a statue. He ended an incredible over half-century drought in a championship game. And Ohio's been so close so many times. Losses to Toledo, to Northern Illinois, Western Michigan. I mean, they've been so close so many times in the last several years. Finally broke through. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention two key pieces who will be back this year. Brian Smith, now the head coach, and Parker Navarro, the quarterback, who just took everything that he had under Curtis Rourke, bided his time, and said, "Hey, this is my chance. Cool, let's run with it." And that's exactly what he did. Did something that no other quarterback's done in 56 years, and not only throttled Miami in that championship, established Ohio, we're here to stay.
Yeah, I mean, he really turned it up, the rest of the season. And we'll talk about him, more during the offense. But you mentioned coaching changes, and Trev, that's something, that they did. They had some. They had, that continuity though of keeping it in house, and that's something. When I look at teams that can contend, I look at 4 things: continuity, returning production, good returning production, not just random like we saw with Oklahoma State. We've mentioned that before. Veteran quarterback coming back, and then how does the schedule set up? So those are like 4 things that I look at. And let's talk coaching changes because, Trev, like you said, and like Alex mentioned, they promoted from within. What do you guys think on that? How you feeling there?
I mean, for me, as an outside point of view looking in, I mean, you kind of have to be happy about it. If I would assume it, judging by the season that they had, him being a big integral part of that season. But on the flip side of that coin, I guess I haven't been able to find much on the candidates in which they did interview, because according to Ohio, they said they had multiple outside candidates that they interviewed that were all qualified, but eventually Brian Smith was the logical choice. I was just wondering if you thought that was still the right course of action, to keep Brian Smith or to go with someone maybe more established.
Well, I think, when you look at what this offense did last year, they were the number 1 scoring offense in the Mid-American Conference, averaging almost 30 points a game. That was Brian Smith. So I think in a conference where offense is so critical, you have to rely on the guy who got you there. Tim Albin, a great coach, did a great job, with recruiting, with getting guys in the right place, with trusting Brian Smith with this offense. But I think you got to go with the hot hand. And it was clear to me, and I think it was clear to a lot of Bobcats as well, that Brian Smith has a lot of passion for Ohio and really cares about the organization, cares about the players, and the players really care about him. There was a lot of vocal, calling to keep Brian Smith, just make him the head coach, make him the head coach.
Right.
And that was coming from within the locker room. That wasn't wasn't media prompted. That was players were saying, look, this is our guy.
That's important.
Well, in that particular
continuity,
in that particular case, then it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Now, I did notice that they promoted passing game coordinator and quarterbacks coach Scott Isfording, I think, to offensive coordinator. Now, I'm assuming that that change is not going to change the way the offense looks. I would imagine.
Yeah, I don't think so. Again, he's look at the quarterbacks he's helped mentor, right? Nathan and Curtis Rourke, and then obviously Parker Navarro. He's done an excellent job with those guys. Watching them kind of break records in the Ohio history books, and now he can happily say, I mentored a MAC champion quarterback looking to run it back. So I think, I don't think you're going to see too much with that. You may see some new wrinkles, some new twist with this offense under Scott, but I don't really think it's going to be too much of a change.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's, again, you keep on with the continuity, and we keep hammering that, and that's such a big part of why we're mentioning Ohio, even though they've suffered some losses in the transfer portal. When you look at it, like we mentioned pre-show, it's a wild world of sports out there, and Ohio kind of got hit by it. I guess if there's anything else on coaching, please jump in. But I'm looking at the portal. 18 out, 16 coming in. what do you feel was the biggest impacts on that, and what you're seeing from the hits that they took?
Yeah, so I think, you've got Tim Carpenter coming in from Tulsa, you've got Shedrick Rhodes coming in from Rutgers, Andrew Durick coming in from App State.
Mhm.
I mean, there are some great athletes coming in that people don't know about. Pierre Kameni Jr. From New Mexico State, the Lobos. Just so many guys who have a lot of talent. And you got a key piece from a couple years ago back, and I think probably the highlight, Say Bangura,
Yeah.
was a great running back for Ohio. Went to Minnesota for a year, coming back, and I think that is a huge get for this Bobcat offense. I think you're going to have opportunities for some of these transfers to make a pretty immediate impact. As you mentioned, a couple guys kind of transferring out, but I
Yeah.
but I think that you kind of gain a lot more with the incoming portal than you really lost to the outgoing portal. Just kind of looking at the impact players, so I'm really excited about what Ohio brought in, and then of course a nice crop of players coming in via the recruiting trail.
Yeah.
A lot of local talent, but then you've got guys like Hype Grant. He's coming in from Pasadena, California. You've got Jermaine Minnis. He's coming in from Maryland.
Yeah.
Another guy, Rashad Perry, coming in from California. So there's talent that was grabbed nationally as well.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, everybody wants to play for a champion, and right now that's what the Ohio Bobcats are. They're the defending MAC champs. You know, you can build on that. Ohio's always been a pretty solid program, especially under Frank Solich, who's done a tremendous job getting Ohio where they're at the last several years. Tim Albin kind of taking that over, and now with Brian Smith at the helm. But this, they've never been the ones to get the big splashy recruits. And I still don't think that's going to be the case, but they've always developed the guys that they've gotten. We
Yeah.
just saw Curtis Rourke just took Indiana to the playoffs. Now he's in the NFL.
Yeah.
So that's an Ohio product, and I will
Absolutely.
stand by that. Sorry, Indiana,
Yeah.
you got him for a year. Ohio had him for 4. We're
Yeah.
claiming him. So
They developed it. It's the same with Cam Ward, not to go off on a tangent, but Miami trying to claim, oh, we developed that. No, go back to Incarnate Word and to Washington State. Those guys were the ones that
exactly
saw the talent, the zero-star talent go into a major Power 4 team at that time. I mean, shoot.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I thought I just overlooking everything. I thought Ohio did, like you said, better on the incoming than they did on the outgoing. I mean, I don't think that they hurt themselves with the outgoing.
No.
And I'm really kind of the running back class is looking really decent. Like they've got some good depth at the running back, I feel like. On top of the transfer portal guy coming back from Minnesota. I mean, they've got the Mike Taylor Jr., who's a pretty decently rated 3-star running back, on top of Irving Brown out of North Carolina. Looks pretty darn good. Reading some of his stats along with Mike Taylor's, I think that they might be able to get some time and maybe some impact if they don't get redshirted. I don't know what I mean. With a new coach, you don't know how much he's going to let the young guys play, or if he's going to redshirt them and kind of let them play their allowable 4 games, and then you're done for the season type of thing.
I think you kind of talk about these running backs. One of the big losses for Ohio is, of course, Ricky Hunt Jr. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't bring him up. Going to Tulsa and now actually at Middle Tennessee. So multiple transfers here this 2024-2025 offseason. But I think, that's going to be a big loss. Ricky Hunt had a couple years ago 5 touchdowns in the bowl game. Just had an absolutely explosive freshman year back in 2023, and I believe that game was against Georgia Southern. He won a bowl game MVP in the Myrtle Beach Bowl. I'm trying to recall this here.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's earned that, and he's gonna do well at Middle Tennessee, I think. And that's a huge loss. But again, for me, Say Bangura coming back,
yes,
more than makes up for that.
Oh yeah,
I can almost 100% guarantee that he's gonna be day one starter, and he'll be the bell cow until maybe some of these younger guys can get up to speed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and just we mentioned it. He's coming back. He was 23 was a solid season for him.
Mhm.
He went off, like you said, he went off, and now he's back, and that's a huge plus up for Navarro to have that in the backfield with him. And we mentioned, Navarro. And we'll talk offense. He comes back. He had an electric season. Really, the only thing that I saw in him was maybe interceptions, but
Mhm.
I feel like as the season went along, he really settled into the role.
Sure.
And you talking about the Ball State game, Miami, Ohio, and then the bowl game. All those games he started really plussing up, the touchdown to interception ratio and throwing for a good amount of yardage too, good completion percentage. Miami, Ohio game in the conference championship, 74% passing. On that, and that's you got to if you can continue that as Navarro, this team is going to have a great chance to go for a repeat on that MAC title. I guess my other questions out wide receiver wise, tight end. How are you feeling out on that position when we
Well,
look at this offense?
yeah, so I think anytime you've got guys who have made an impact in the program over the years, you have to figure out how to replace them, and that's
Mhm.
going to be no different for Ohio. They had a bunch of guys who did an excellent, excellent job giving Parker Navarro opportunities. And I wanted to point out one thing with Parker Navarro. He actually ranked 7th in the Mid American Conference last year in terms of passing. Um, yeah, he had a better completion percentage than most every other quarterback in the MAC, uh, behind, I believe, only Taj Bullock and Connor Bazelak from Bowling Green.
Yeah.
But his 13-11 touchdown to interception ratio wasn't stellar, but as the year went on, he got better. He actually only averaged about one buck 86 a game over the season. So he wasn't flashy, but the RPO was the bread and butter. And
Yeah.
that's, Ohio had multiple 1,000-yard rushers last year. And
Yeah.
I think that's worth talking about as well. And so I would have been remiss if we didn't kind of bring that up a little bit. But I think again, just kind of looking at some of these guys, you're gonna have like Delaney Crawford, the sophomore, an opportunity for him to step up as a wide receiver. They got a lot of young guys at wide receiver, a lot of
Yeah.
sophomores, a lot of freshmen. You've got Iman Dennis, the senior, the 5'11" senior. Max Rodart, he's from Sacramento. He's going to be a guy he's a little bit bigger. He's 6 foot. Ian Pugh. You've got Matthew Stewart. I mean, these are guys who are above 6 foot who are going to give you options. Hunter
Mhm.
Thompson, another tall wide receiver, but a lot of freshmen. So,
Yeah.
this is where a shout out, of course, to Riley Neer. He's a freshman this year. And I say a shout out to him. Riley Neer is going to be a wide receiver from Bell Fountain, Ohio. Dear friend of mine from growing up as a child in church. That is his cousin,
Oh, that's cool.
who is going to be playing college football at Ohio this year. So I just wanted to give him a special shout out and
Yeah.
wish him the best
That's
of
awesome.
luck. Riley Neer, number
Absolutely.
23. Watch out for him. If he becomes a star, that's going to be the guy to keep an eye on. But no, just
Love it.
so many young guys.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm actually only seeing one senior in this receiver core right now, just based off of my quick list here.
Yeah.
And but that opens a lot of doors for young guys to step in
Absolutely.
and
That's
make
what I have
plays.
on my notes as well. Is a lot of young guys who can step up,
Mhm.
who can help out in that passing game. And you did mention, his running ability of Navarro too. I mean, that just impressive. Absolutely impressive. So you
Yep.
add, you know, young guys stepping in, you got the running game beefing up, bringing in, what Navarro brings. And then, like we mentioned, coming back in Bangura, this offense, I think, is going to be all right. Offensive line and everything, I think they're going to be just fine too. There's some questions there from what I've been reading from blogs and posters, but I trust the development of this Ohio program to have the line ready to go.
Well, and I think too something that is worth mentioning. Obviously they lose Anthony Tyus over to Northwestern. Ohio had 2 top 4 rushers in the Mid American Conference a year ago. that RPO was so critical to their success. And especially when you have an athletic talent such as Parker Navarro and Tyus kind of doing their thing. Now you get Saban Gura back, who was a power back in the Mid-American Conference. That's going to open up a lot more options. And now that Brian Smith's kind of got the head coaching gig, you're going to see a few wrinkles in this offense. But why try to fix what isn't broken? What got you to the dance? Keep dancing with it.
Yeah, no,
That's
totally
right.
fair. I absolutely agree with you. And we mentioned, portal guys, you got some offensive linemen coming in, to help there too. I guess if you guys are ready, let's jump over to defensive side because there was obviously some big name losses, in that realm from, what I've been reading and what, what we saw as production from last year gone. Guys like Cam Rice, Brad Weaver pushing on. What do you think on the defensive front? What are you guys seeing on that? Is they going to be able to, replicate or at least try to plug those gaps?
That's a great question. I think defensively, that was where Ohio, they were one of the best scoring defenses in the country. So I'm not too worried about like the offense or the defensive line and the linebacking core. I'm worried about the safeties and corners.
Yeah.
I think that is kind of the area of concern. Some of the numbers I was looking at earlier, kind of prepping for this, this was a really, really, really bad passing defense. They ranked 6th in the Mid-American Conference, giving up 213 yards a game. And opposing quarterbacks were completing 61% of their passes. So if you can figure that out, they did have 11 interceptions, but they gave up 16 touchdowns. If you can figure that out through the air, you've got a rushing defense that was best in the Mid-American Conference by 23 yards. You held opponents to 2.95 rushing yards a game. And 2.95 rushing yards per carry and 90.5 rushing yards a game. You held Miami to under 60 in the MAC championship. With a healthy Brett Gabbert, I might add. So I think if they can figure this out on the defensive line, I'm not worried about it. You got some solid guys coming in via the transfer portal.
Yeah.
It's going to be, what can you do with the guys who you have to replace? I really, really like some of these young guys coming in. This Ike Ackerman, the freshman, I think he's got a lot of potential. He ranked 13th in the state of Nebraska for an edge rusher. You've got Ty Newbert, another guy who I think could make a pretty quick impact. And then Brandon Weaver from Hilliard Darby. For those who are in Ohio, the name Hilliard Darby. They're consistently talked about in high school football. So I don't expect that there's going to be much of a drop off. There will be growing pains.
Yeah.
But I don't expect that there's going to be much of a drop off on the defensive line.
Okay. Yeah. Good to know. Cause that's something, outward looking in, you see these guys that were starters that left. You're like, okay, that looks like a shot, to the team. How are they going to recuperate from that? But yeah, I appreciate your insight on that. Trev, you seen anything on the defense side that's maybe got you worried at all? Linebacker position I've seen is something that people have talked about, but I think it looks all right.
Yeah, I mean, look, they didn't have to do a whole lot in the portal, which is lucky for Ohio, honestly, which is great, because I have been one of the biggest people on do not replace your entire team with transfer portal people. It never has worked out. There is no evidence, tangible evidence, that you can replace an entire team and it work out the following year. However, that being said, if you can plug and play some good key pieces and you are strategic in who you bring in, I think will benefit the team in many different ways.
Yeah.
But like you said, like I'm always concerned with the secondary of every team. As soon as you lose a star secondary guy, immediately that's my first concern, because the college football landscape is all pass and a little bit of run. Unless you have like a team that is very Michigan-esque, where they are try and be as balanced as possible, or in this past year, just run everything.
When you can't throw.
And when you can't throw the ball, which is really not a problem for any MAC team, honestly, because as long as I can remember, the MAC teams have been on, I don't want to say the cutting edge necessarily, but they've been on the forefront of spread offenses and RPOs and things like that. You always kind of see them doing it, and then you kind of see the rest of the country kind of, it just seems to be the way it works out. I don't know.
You know, it's interesting you bring up that point about losing a key, secondary player. Toledo on defense gave up roughly 24 more yards a game through the air after Quinyon Mitchell was drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. So I do think that is an interesting thing to kind of notate there.
Yeah, exactly right. So like it's always secondary for me. Obviously, if you lose a team captain or something like that in the middle of the defense, like a middle linebacker, that always hurts no matter what. If you lose a team captain in the middle of the defense, I don't care how good your replacement is, it's just not going to be the same.
Yeah. It is tough. And now they did bring in a couple guys from the portal that looked solid. Ronald Jackson, I think, was mentioned from Old Dominion. Jamar Mundy coming in from Western Kentucky. Guys that they're bringing in from other Group of 5 schools. And then Hyatt Jr. Was another one that I've seen his name mentioned a couple of times. Coming up from South Alabama as somebody that can step in and do something. All right. Well, if you guys, I think we look at this 2025 schedule and see what this roster is going to go up against. Because to me, you looked at the portal losses, but I think they're going to be just fine with what they have organically, some of the pieces that we've plugged in. Let's look at 2025, and obviously that start is brutal. It's Rutgers, West Virginia, and then at Ohio State.
Good Lord.
3-1 in that stretch.
Yeah. What do you say? What did you say? I'm sorry.
I'm saying 3-0 on that stretch.
I'm saying 3-1 in that first 4-game stretch, boys.
Okay. So, are they losing Gardner Webb? Are they losing?
Yeah, that's the one they're losing.
Okay.
They're going to be just so pumped. They're going to be top 5 in the country, and then that's the game they're going to drop.
You go through all that. Hey, you get worn down on it. But yeah, I assume Ohio State's the team.
I love the confidence. I love it. And I will be the first to be. I will buy all things Ohio if they beat Ohio State. I swear to God, I will buy everything Ohio. That's the only Ohio team that has the word Ohio in it that I'm okay with buying apparel for.
Yeah, we're both Michiganders, so it's one of those things. But yeah, you got Rutgers early, and I definitely think that's a winnable game. Rutgers, they've had solid defenses throughout their time recently, but offensively they've just struggled, and I think there's opportunity there. West Virginia, they're retooling. That's a totally new team, new coach, Rich Rod back in the state. So that's an interesting game. But again, it's in Athens, Ohio, and that is huge to me for Ohio in this game to keep that. You say you get that first one against Rutgers, knock off West Virginia. Watch out, guys. This could be a playoff team right here when you're talking college football playoff. And definitely if they win those 2 games, they should repeat the MAC. Like I don't see why they couldn't go through the rest of that schedule. When you look at the 2025 schedule, what do you see outside those first 3 games, like ones that are circled? Obviously, Miami, Ohio. What else?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta love the fact that they don't have to play Toledo. I'm just saying, like, because we'll talk about Toledo a little later on, but I love that. I mean, I think the one that I would probably circle is Miami of Ohio coming in to Athens, and then probably Western Michigan in Kalamazoo towards the end of the season. Those are 2 that I kind of circled towards the end of the season. But like I said, I divert to Alex on this one. But those are 2 that historically I feel like Miami, Ohio always gives people tough times. I mean, whether they're having a good season or not, they usually when you go into conference play, it's just like any other conference nowadays. It's the parity is ridiculous. So I mean, the good teams and the bad teams, there's very, very little margin in between the 2.
So I think it's really it's interesting, this game with West Virginia. I kind of want to touch on this before I kind of highlight anything else on the schedule. Everybody kind of talks about, big teams don't travel to MAC schools anymore. And, we've not seen Pittsburgh travel as much to the MAC as they used to. Kentucky bought out Akron was supposed to host Kentucky in football this year. They bought out Akron to get out of that game. Kentucky is supposed to play Toledo in like 2027 in Toledo. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. I have a feeling that one will, given kind of the history with Toledo. They've done like essentially a 3-for-1 with Toledo. Hey, play 3 here and then we'll travel there kind of thing.
Okay.
So Toledo will play Kentucky. They kick off the season at Kentucky this year. But this West Virginia game is really, really interesting to me because we saw 2 years ago Iowa State come into Peden Stadium. This is the first year they were Frank Solich Field. Iowa State lost that game. Former head coach from Toledo, by the way, Matt Campbell, lost that game in Peden Stadium. Peden, for as much as people talk about how small it is, and it's not overly massive. Like it's a little bit smaller. I believe the capacity's somewhere about 25,000 people. But it's not one of those stadiums that you can just say we're guaranteed to win, because you're not. Right. They ever since renaming it Frank Solich Field, I want to say Ohio's only lost like 2 games on that turf. That was 3 years ago. So like Ohio has been really good at home, especially since they've renamed it Frank Solich Field. I don't imagine that this is going to be an easy game for West Virginia. Sure. You're away from your fans. I think this is a huge recruiting opportunity for West Virginia, if I'm being perfectly honest. You're in the foothills of Southeast Ohio, a region that you probably don't recruit too well because you've got Marshall and Ohio kind of blocking that off a little bit. West Virginia hasn't been a real relative power in recent history. Their last great year, I believe, was 2007 under Rich Rod's final year.
Rich Rod. Rich Rod was
talk about coming full circle, right?
Yeah. Right.
And then they lost that game to go to the championship to Pitt, 13-9. So it's sorry, any West Virginia fans, I just really upset there. It's been 18 years. Give it a rest.
Yeah, had to hit him with it.
Let it go. Let it go. Rich Rod's back, guys. Rich Rod is back.
But I think this is an opportunity for West Virginia get their brand into the state of Ohio. And that was the other thing. Ohio State dominates the state of Ohio when it comes to recruiting. Yeah. So now you kind of break into Big Ten territory a little bit, MAC country, a little bit of the Big 12. Your rival with Cincinnati now. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there for West Virginia to kind of get their brand in that area a little bit more. But then there's an opportunity for Ohio to say, look, we welcome them into our place and we beat them. Because what happened a couple of years ago, Ohio lost on the road at Iowa State, got beaten. It was like 49-10. Man. Iowa State comes to town the year later, lose by a field goal.
Yep.
Something to keep in mind.
The road games are a different animal. I don't care what team you are and who you're playing. A road game is always different.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I've seen a little bit more of this recently. Like Oklahoma went to Tulane, or not too long ago. There's another, or is Oklahoma going to Temple this year? I believe it is.
I believe so. Yeah.
And I'd have to look. I don't have, just going off memory here, but it's something I would like to see more of. Like get to these schools and play these for these big teams. Go play on the road. Go.
Yeah, and I also think there's a bigger push for the Group of 5 to basically get these Power 4 schools come into their turf, only because that gives them a little, if they have a great season, gives them a little bit better of a case to be made to be that Group of 5 representative in the playoff.
Just another point of order here. Since 2022, Ohio has lost 1 game on Frank Solich Field.
There we go.
Oh, wow.
So you think 6 home games a year, they're 17-1 in the last 3 seasons.
West Virginia better be watched now.
That's a dangerous game.
Hey, I always called it 3-1 in the first 4 game stretch. So you guys, Rutgers fans, if you're watching West Virginia, just get ready. Just get ready.
I really like the opportunity at Rutgers. The home game against West Virginia, Peden will be hopping.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be great. It's going to be a great environment, opportunity to set a stadium attendance record. But the game with Rutgers, I really, really like this one. Fun fact for y'all. Rutgers, I believe, or West Virginia, I believe their first game under Rich Rod was at home against Ohio.
Really?
I'd have to go back and check the record books on that, but I believe their first game under Rich Rod was at home against Ohio. So again, full circle, big headline moments here.
Yeah.
Rich Rod now 20 plus years later taking on Ohio.
And I'm sure there'll be a
On the
call to
road.
arms at Ohio University to have everyone show out.
Oh yeah. That town's going to be insane when that game comes down the pike. Others that really looking at it, I think again you get through those. Bowling Green's lost their biggest weapon and to the draft, but I mean that's still a team you got to watch out for. Buffalo's another one. I don't know if enough people are maybe talking about what's going on. Buffalo, I like their coaching staff and what they've been doing there. Something to watch. So I mean it's a schedule that can get them back, I think, to the MAC championship and at least be in the race. Getting that top 25. And because obviously that's so important nowadays for getting that slot in the playoffs. But first things first, win that MAC championship again and bring it home.
I think the big trap games are going to be Northern Illinois and Miami, if I'm being perfectly honest. Northern Illinois, obviously leaving the MAC after this season, have a massive target on their backs.
Oh yeah.
Twitter was everybody online that's not NIU. Furious with the Huskies and Sean Frazier, great man. He's done an excellent job at NIU, trying to align them to be where they want to be and where they need to be. You got to give him credit for doing the right thing. But yeah, I think those are the two trap games: Northern Illinois, Miami, Ohio. I think the Bobcats probably go 1-1 in that 2-game split.
All right. So in all, you think this team has what it takes, to get back to that conference championship?
I do. I really do. I think, the offense is going to be fine. Some growing pains against some stiff competition early, but the benefit to that is Rutgers and West Virginia have no film on any of your offense except Parker Navarro. So I think there's a lot of value in that. As much as I don't want to, I think you can chalk the Ohio State game up as a loss.
Yeah.
But then I think you get to Gardner-Webb, you get Bowling Green, and then Ball State. October 18th, to me, is the biggest game on your schedule outside of the first four.
And it's homecoming.
Yep. All right. Well, I like what this Ohio team has. I appreciate you coming on to talk about it. And Trev,
real quick, I want an over-under double-digit wins.
Let's see.
I have not seen any big lines out on it.
Bowl game and MAC championship, because I think
I think MAC championship is included, but not the bowl game. The bowl game is kind of separate.
I'm gonna set my over/under line at 9.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's
so right at 10 wins.
Yeah.
Right at 10 wins. Really. Yeah. I got you. See, that's where I was looking at. I was looking at this. I was like, okay, it could be a 10-win season.
Yeah,
for sure. Because there is a possibility in my head. There's a possibility that they drop Rutgers and Ohio State, and then in my head, I think, like you said, Northern Iowa or Illinois is huge, and Miami's huge. However, I think they could run the table on the MAC.
Mm-hmm.
There's a potential because they do have enough returning, and they do not have, like I said, they don't have to play one of the teams that we're going to talk about that has the most returning in all of the MAC conference coming back this year. So they don't have to play them until potentially the MAC championship.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting race.
It will be.
So potential for this team. We appreciate you guys tuning in, listening. Of course, Alex, we thank you so much. And we are going to talk about, Toledo, but we've been doing these as single episodes for any of you that are just watching. So if you want to go check out some of the other teams we talked about in the group of 5, go hit up the YouTube. It's on there. And it's also on our Twitter thread too. So, and
Alex, they can find your show on
at the MSC Podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, the Varsity Network by Lairfield. Really, wherever podcasts are, you can find us, the MSC Podcast.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, again, we appreciate you, and we'll talk to you guys here in a minute about Toledo. We'll see
All
you.
right, take it.